Welcome to In This Family. I'm Dr. Michelle K. Murray, President and CEO of Nexus Family Healing, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and your host. In This Family is presented by Nexus Family Healing. We are a national nonprofit mental health organization who helps youth and families heal from trauma and complex mental health challenges. We believe every child is worth it and every family matters. Today, we're going to kind of change things up a bit. Instead of me interviewing somebody, I actually wanted to spend some time to talk about the holidays. There is so much that goes on in our lives around holidays, and we've got some big ones coming up. The holidays can be a great time for a lot of people with a lot of fond memories, funny things, and experiences that you reflect on with family and friends. And it can be a time to decompress. And then for other people, getting together with family, whether it's yours or a partner's family, can also produce a lot of anxiety and sometimes fears or perhaps dread, maybe anger that you're not spending the time the way that you want to. But if family is in your plans, I thought it would be a good idea to just talk about how you can prepare yourself to get through those holidays. And the first thing that I want to remind listeners is that we always have a choice. Even if we feel like we don't, and even if we feel like we are being quote unquote forced to go see people, remind yourself that you really do have a choice. Now, as an adult, you can choose to tell people that you're just simply not going to be there. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't have to deal with the consequences of that, perhaps unhappy family members, people who are angry with you or disappointed in you. But if you think about it as your choice and that you're choosing to be with family, even though it might be difficult, because you're doing it for the sake of the relationships and because you don't want to deal with the consequences of perhaps people being upset or disappointed with you, recognize that that is still a choice. And when we recognize the choices that we make, given the information that we have, we often can get through more difficult things in a better way, in a healthier way. So if we go down the road that you're making a choice to be with family or friends that perhaps you would rather not spend time with, think about the things that you can get out of that for yourself and prepare yourself to take control of the situation. For instance, things like being very clear with where you're going, talking to the host, and letting them know the times that you're going to be available. And make sure you give yourself enough time to be there, to be with people that you feel like you need to be with, and then set your boundary to leave. But it's always best to do that ahead of time with the host. So then you're not catching people off guard. They're prepared for your comings and goings, and then you can follow through with that boundary that you've set up for yourself. The other thing to think about is what is something positive that you can gain from that experience with family. Maybe you can just relax, watch some TV. Maybe you can bring a book. Maybe there's a game that you could bring that you could play with some folks. Maybe there are some positive topics that you could come up with ahead of time to talk with family members where conversation can often be strained. And speaking of conversation, if you do have strained relationships and you're going to spend time with people, try to stay away from trigger topics. Stay away from political trigger topics. Stay away from things that you know bother other people and or that could become triggering for yourself if people bring up certain things. Maybe find a way to participate in your own way. So whether that is bringing a special meal item that does have some positive meaning to you, bringing something to that family gathering that you really have control over that speaks to who you are and find a way to bring that in can often help us feel like we have more control over the situation and that we're choosing to engage in those family events. The other thing to think about is what is it that you really want to have happen after your time with your family? As Franklin Covey has said, begin with the end in mind. Imagine for yourself before you go into some challenging situations what you hope will happen by the time the family time has ended. How is it that you want people to think and feel about you and your experiences that you had that day? What is it that you want to accomplish in terms of how you spend your time? And whatever that is, just have some specific boundaries for yourself about what you're going to engage in and perhaps what you're going to avoid. And something to think about is to come up with a saying or some kind of a response that you have prepared so that if family members start to engage with you in conversations that you think might become a trigger or that could lead to some angst and conflict, come up with a saying so that you're prepared and practice that saying. A saying might be, hey, that's kind of an interesting topic, but I want to kind of avoid speaking about this because it just gets me riled up. Blame yourself, put it on you, don't put it on them. You can also say, yeah, I'm not really prepared to talk about that topic this time around. Maybe I'll give it more thought and we can talk about that another time. Sometimes you can just be blunt about it and just say simply, if I talk about this, it's just not going to go well for me. Also, come prepared with different conversations that you would like to have with people that you could actually initiate. Because a lot of times, family members just want to know that you're there and that you're being involved and that you're engaging. And if you can initiate those points of engagement, oftentimes it gets enough family experiences going that people won't bring up more challenging things. So think about the people that are going to be there, those that you feel like you need to have some interaction with, and think of one or two questions that you would like to ask those people about their life so that you feel like you are positively engaging and creating positive experiences for them and for yourself. And then also, one of the last things that perhaps you can think about is really prepare yourself to go into recognizing the family dynamics that exist in your family and being prepared emotionally for those things to potentially come up. What is your exit strategy if emotionally things start to get addressed that overwhelm you? Say that you need to go use the restroom. Go into the restroom, take some deep breaths, calm yourself down. Change the narrative about why people are trying to have conversations with you about certain things. So, for instance, it may be that you have a parent that's going to ask you, about your job and say you've had a lot of problems with your job. And you think they're asking you about the job because they're judging you, they're disappointed in what you've done. So, what you need to do is reframe for yourself the reason that they're asking you the question. And whether it's true or not really doesn't matter. Whatever their motive is, doesn't really matter. What you want to do is think in your mind, what is the meaning that I'm going to make out of the questions or the topics that might come up? And just prepare yourself for that. That, wow, my parents are asking about my job because they really are interested in what I'm doing with my day. And then answer it the way that you want. Now, that's taking care of yourself. The other thing that I would want folks to think about is preparing your children or your other family members or partners to be with your family or other people that you have to spend time with that you're concerned about. You can use some of the same techniques that you use for yourself with people in your family. For instance, you can talk to your family members about the timing. We're going to go here at this time and we're going to leave at this time. And you can prepare people for what you're going to do while you are there. And you can even talk to people in your family or those that you're going to be with ahead of time to say, hey, it would really be best if we could not talk about these specific topics, and get their support to also not bring up triggering topics. Now, with children, you obviously want to say less rather than more, but it's a good idea to, if you know your children get angst by being with particular family members, prepare them for that. Talk to them about, hey, when your aunt so and so does this, or when your uncle does so and so this, or if your sibling does this, What are some things that you can do to deal with that if that comes up? And work with your children and other family members to be prepared with the same kind of a plan. And I mentioned an exit strategy. An exit strategy is something that you do that perhaps wasn't planned. Maybe you go in with all the best intentions of having a great family time. You come in with the events that you're going to do, the questions you're going to ask, the topics you're going to try to avoid, and everything you do doesn't work out. Some negative dynamics start to come up, and you are having an emotional reaction and feeling like you need to leave. And simply, all you need to do is come prepared ahead of time for what that might be. Maybe you just need to say, and I know that lying's not a good thing, but sometimes it's better than getting into conversations. Maybe it can just simply be as, you know what, I'm feeling really horrible. I have a huge headache coming on, and I'm so sorry, but I need to leave. And then what you can do, if you have to have that kind of exit strategy, is you leave, regardless of how people feel about that, and then follow up later in the day with a text or an email or maybe even a phone call to just check in with the person and thank them again for hosting, thank them again for you being there, and then just remind them that you are feeling very much under the weather, and then give an update of how you're doing. So I have an example in my own family to give. I had the opportunity for me and my son to go join a late Thanksgiving with my extended family, cousins, siblings, parents. And the goal that I had for myself, thinking about the end in mind, was to go and have a really positive experience with my family, to participate in the activities that we had set up, because we had some very particular experiences that we wanted to have. And I wanted both myself and my son to actively participate and engage with the entire family through these events. And I did exactly what I have said. I prepared both of us for all the different scenarios. I had prepared my son for what we would be doing and who we would be spending time with. I prepared myself for the different dynamics that might come up in the family and even talked to my son about that and explained how long we would be there, what we would be doing, who would be doing what. And I had to quickly learn to adjust to what happened in that family experience. But I went in knowing, here's my boundaries, here's what I'm going to end up doing. Well, lo and behold, when we got there, it was fine at the beginning, but then when we were engaging in the celebrations that were planned, he kind of got that sour look on his face and went off into another room and refused to engage. And I had to first self reflect for myself about why I was so bothered by this. This is a 12-year-old, because I was getting really agitated that he wasn't doing what we agreed. I expected him to be involved in the family. And I first had to evaluate my own thoughts about this, that really what it was is I was just embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I couldn't get my child to do what was expected of him. And I had to manage that, because if I had continued to go down that frame of I'm embarrassed, I need to get my child to do what he's supposed to do, then I know that my emotions could get out of control, and then my interactions with him would turn very sour. So then I realized that I just needed to go talk to my son and explain to my family members that he just was not in the mood to have these experiences. And what happened in the end is, I was disappointed that he wasn't engaged. But what I could recognize is that he was only 12, put it in perspective, that that's just his life. And I kept going with the experiences that I was having with my family without him. So instead of it totally changing my experience, I tried to encourage him, tried to talk to him, gave him many opportunities. But at the end of the day, I held my boundary that this is what we were going to do. We were going to engage in the experiences. And I did that without him, instead of just letting him take control of the whole day and changing courses or leaving. I hope that example gives you some idea of some of the things that you might come across when you're getting together with family. I will end with one more thought. Give yourself a break during this time. Find a way to enjoy time for yourself and your family and the people that you really, really care about. And the holidays don't always have to be about family. If you are in a place in your life where family is just not how you spend your time during the holidays, then that is simply A-okay. Celebrate the day for what is important to you. Do the things that you want to do with your time that bring you the most joy so that the holidays can be a time that is wonderful and exciting and new for yourself. In This Family is produced by John Moe, and the music is provided by Jeremy Messersmith. You can learn more about Nexus by visiting nexusfamilyhealing.org. Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I hope you recommend In This Family to family and friends, post about us on social, and leave a rating or review. I'm Dr. Michelle K. Murray. See you next time.